Did you also interview persons at the request of lead detective Velasquez? Wayne?
I did.
Thank you. That's all I have now.
Thank you.
Cross.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
You, if I heard you correctly, you worked with APD, Atlanta Police Department, for, is it 22 years or was it more than that?
22.
Okay. You left the Atlanta Police Department in what year?
2017.
Did you work in the Fulton County DA's office for some period of time?
I did.
Investigator?
I was assigned to the DA's office, yes.
You were assigned to the DA's office from
2004 until, I believe, 2009. I was multi-agency cold case squad.
Okay. So what that means, well, tell me, if what that means is that you're an APD officer, but you're assigned to work with the Fulton County DA's office for a specific purpose.
That was correct, yes.
Cold case squad, is that what that was?
Yes.
Is it? It is not one. It is not one. All right, thank you, ma'am. Let me jump into that a little bit. You are familiar with with Zone 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with Zone 3 and specifically the Cleveland Avenue corridor based on your years as a police officer,
I am.
based on the work that you've done in that area.
Yes.
You were asked last week, and I believe you testified, that over the period of time that you worked in that area, you spoke to numerous people in the Zone 3. And I'm gonna kind of confine it to Cleveland Avenue corridor, in that corridor. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. People who lived there, who were residents, right?
Correct.
People who were witnesses for different offenses or different crimes or different things you were investigating, right?
Yes.
You've arrested numerous people in that area, correct?
I have.
You worked with, did I hear you say that you worked with the Red Dog Squad at some point?
I did.
Okay. How long were you a Red Dog officer?
2.5 years.
Okay. During that period of time, now, is Red Dog primarily focused on drug-related offenses?
Drugs and, well, all levels of street crime, drugs, weapons, things of that nature.
During the period of time that you worked as a Red Dog officer, you had occasion to arrest a number of people in the Cleveland Avenue corridor.
That's an accurate representation.
inaccurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
You would serve search warrants.
We did.
You would serve arrest warrants, arrest people, right?
We did.
You became familiar with what the general trends and the crimes and so forth were in that area. Is that fair to say?
During that time, yes.
Yes. And in fact, during your entire period of time as an Atlanta Police Department officer, you would say that that area is a high crime area.
In Zone 3, in particular, the Cleveland Avenue area of Zone 3.
But let's say Zone 3 first.
I would say it is one of the 6 zones that have an increased level of crime, yes.
Okay. And specifically the Cleveland Avenue corridor, very high crime area.
It would be difficult for me to characterize the Cleveland Avenue area as having more crime than another particular area. I think that would require me to do some analysis.
Okay.
So I wasn't prepared for that, so I don't know if I could testify to that.
Well, let me just ask you about your experience.
Certainly.
Would it be fair to say that you have investigated numerous murders in the Cleveland Avenue corridor?
Objection as to vague, numerous.
I sustain the objection.
All right. You have investigated murders in the Cleveland Avenue area.
Yes,
More than one,
I have.
more than 10.
I don't know. And to be quite honest with you, from being in homicide for 17 years, it's difficult for me to think about I probably could come up with that analysis, but as I sit here today, it would take some time for me to really go back and think about that.
Okay.
I have personally handled homicides
Yes.
in zone 1 through 6, so I can't tell you if that Cleveland Avenue area or zone 3 was significantly more than zone 1 or zone 4.
All right. When you were asked last week to talk about that area and what you knew about the area, I think I heard you describe it as it's an area where people are trying to get by, right?
I did say that.
It is a poor area. Was that fair to say?
I think it's economically depressed, yes.
I mean, it was part of the Atlanta Empowerment Zone, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Okay. It is an area that has about, what, 30% employment. Isn't that about right?
I
You
don't
that,
know.
PK?
I don't know the employment statistics of zone 3.
Okay. There are a lot of drug crimes that go on in that area.
Objection as to vague.
There are drug crimes that go on in that area, correct?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Judge.
That's all right.
True?
I have personally, while working Red Dog, arrested a good amount of people in zone 3 for drug possession, yes. In the 90s, specifically.
All right. There are, in the 90s, would that be the main period of time that you worked on the street, for lack of a better phrase?
Yes,
Zone 3?
specifically from 1997, mid-1997 to November of 2000.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that if you are a child or a juvenile growing up in that area, you're growing up in a pretty rough area?
Objection, speculation, and vague.
I'll stand there.
Okay. Based on the time that you spent in that area, did you have occasion to interact with the people who lived in that area, including young folks?
I did.
Okay. Would you say, based on your interaction and your observations, that growing up as a young person in that area appeared to be a difficult endeavor?
Objection, that is ambiguous, vague.
I'll rule the objection.
I don't have an answer for that. I think that would require me to put forth a robust analysis. I'm not prepared to testify to that right now.
All right. Based on your observation, and I think the number that I wrote down that you said was that, let me get it right, that you probably had occasion to visit more than 150 homes in the Cleveland Avenue area during your time as a police officer. Is that about right?
I think I may have testified in zone 3, not specifically Cleveland Avenue, yes.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that from your observation, your experience, that people who live in that area are working hard, trying to get out of poverty, trying to get out of that area? Is that fair to say?
Objection, compound question.
Stand the question.
Have you had occasion during a period of time that you interacted with the folks in Zone 3 to come across young folks who were trying to find any way to make it in that area?
I think my experience has been overall, if we're specifically talking about young folks, I think I've experienced more young folks who are making it in a relative sense of living in a neighborhood, going to school, doing what they were supposed to do. My recollection of knocking on doors and talking to people, witnesses, and families, many of the children that I either spoke to or observed were like any other kids that I've experienced in my life, personally and professionally.
Wanting to do better, right?
I think generally speaking, everyone wants to do better.
Sure.
I don't know that that's specific to Zone 3.
Right, but coming up in an area that you've described, that we've been talking about, where there's a significant amount of crime, right?
Objection, Your Honor, with a significant amount.
Stand the objection.
Where there's crime, all right, it's a tough area, right? Is that fair to say?
Overall, Zone 3, I think, I don't know if I can say Zone 3 itself is a tough area. I think there are pockets in Zone 3 that are a little more challenging than others.
Okay. It'll be challenging to come up there as a youngster. Would you agree with that?
I think my analysis is more so based on crime. There are some pockets of crime in Zone 3 that are a little more prevalent than other areas of Zone 3.
And if you live in that area, you are, well, for lack of a better word, in the middle of those pockets of crime. Is that fair to say?
Objection, Your Honor, that's vague.
Same question.
All right. So let me ask you a little bit about your role as an investigator, and specifically this investigation. In this case, Detective Quinn was the lead investigator in regards to this incident.
That's correct.
And when I say this incident, we're talking about this incident that occurred on September the 11th of 2013. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. This was an incident, as you know it to be, based on your involvement, of a shooting that occurred in the Summerdale Commons apartment complex, right?
Yes.
Followed by the discharge or the shooting of a weapon by a police officer, Robeson L., right?
Correct.
The shooting of two individuals identified in a car, a maroon car, right?
Correct.
And a car crashing into a laundromat, and individuals getting out of that car, right?
Correct.
All right. Now, 22 years on the force, Red Dog, working with the DA's office, you understand, and certainly you did then, the need for a thorough investigation, right?
Yes.
You want to do a thorough investigation anytime you're involved in one because there are important things at stake. For example, whether a person who has committed a crime is apprehended or not. True?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that as a compound question.
I'll sustain this form. You can break it up.
Sure, I'll break it down. You want to do a thorough investigation because if someone has committed a crime, you want to try as best you can to apprehend the person who has committed that crime. Is that true?
I would agree. I would agree.
Okay. You would want to identify someone who has committed a crime versus someone who has not committed a crime. Is that fair to say?
Objection, Your Honor, vague. Because they may have to identify witnesses.
Same question.
All right. Break down even more. All right. For everyone. In this case, you knew as part of your investigation that there were allegedly multiple individuals who came out of a vehicle. Is that fair to say?
I did learn that later, yes.
All right, as part of your investigation, right?
Correct.
Okay. In investigating a case, one of the things you might want to do would be to take statements from witnesses. Is that true?
I would agree.
Right. And as a police officer, you take a statement from a witness to get as accurate an account of what that witness saw as possible. True?
I would agree.
All right. You would want to hear from that particular witness in their own words what they knew or what they experienced. True?
That's what taking a statement entails, yes.
Right. And if you are a police officer or an investigator taking a statement from a witness, you don't tell them what happened. You listen to them tell you what happened. Is that true?
That's too vague
How is that? I'm sorry.
and compound.
I'll sustain this to compound.
Okay. If you as a police officer or investigator are interviewing a witness, you would not want to tell that witness what they saw, would you?
No.
You would want to have that witness tell you what they saw, correct?
Correct.
And you're stuck. I mean, whatever they tell you, it is what it is, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Well, I mean, if a witness tells you something and you are recording that statement.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to
Basis.
speculation. If the witness tells something and the report.
I'll sustain this as speculation.
Okay. When witnesses give statements, sometimes you record those statements, right?
Sometimes.
All right. And you talked in your direct examination when the prosecutor asked you some questions about policy and procedure. You talked about the need to observe proper police policy, right?
Right.
It is not proper police policy to erase the statement of a witness and then tell them, now let's start over, right?
An official statement, and I think in context, erasing what context? I'm not
If a witness gives you a statement and you record that statement,
Your Honor, objection as to speculation.
I stand the objection.
is it police policy to record a statement from a witness and then erase the statement?
There is no policy that exists that specifically addresses that.
Okay. Is that proper protocol?
That could be.
Okay.
People, and I think in context, typically interviewing witnesses or sometimes even suspects, more often than not, they lie. Many times witnesses have told lies.
Okay.
And we, doing this job long enough, understand when we start to see that developing.
All right, but
I wasn't done. I wasn't finished, sir.
go ahead. Finish for me.
So in that context, when one is taking a statement, if you choose to record that and it is, in your opinion, complete fabrication, it doesn't line up with the facts, we could stop the tape and re-record it.
Okay.
Once we start presenting facts or challenging that witness or suspect, and then they, I hate to use this word, but a come to Jesus meeting where we're like, okay, this is a lie, you know, you lied. Let's get down to the nitty gritty now.
Is it your role to make to make a determination as to when someone's lying or not?
Objection, Your Honor, as to vagueness.
How-
In what context?
I stand the objection.
In the course of a police investigation, right, if a witness gives you a statement, right, is it your role to determine what statement is true and what statement is not true?
Your Honor, this is speculation.
I stand the question.
When you record statements, is one of the reasons that you're recording the statements for purposes of perhaps passing that information on to, let's say, a prosecutor's office later on?
Yes,
When you record a statement as an investigator, is part of the reason that you're recording the statement so that you can later on go back and look at or listen to what a witness said?
that's part of it, yes.
When you record a statement, is one of the reasons that you record a statement so that you can compare that witness's statement against other witnesses' statements?
That would be corroboration, yes.
Right. And so if a witness gives you a statement and you erase it, you no longer have that statement that was
Speculation, Your
given
Honor.
previously. Is that right?
Here's a statement.
I
I'm
s-
sorry.
I'm trying to finish my question.
Yeah, I followed your question, so I apologize. I object as to speculation.
I stand the question.
In this case, are you aware of any statements that were taken and then subsequently erased?
No,
You testified earlier about, and you were showing photographs of the debris from the vehicle in Summerdale Commons Apartments. Remember that?
I do.
Okay. Did you also go to the location of the laundromat where the car had collided with the wall of the laundromat? Did you go there?
I did.
All right. Did you have occasion to either search for or to retrieve any video surveillance from that laundromat?
No, I just merely drove there. I don't even think I got out of the car.
Okay. You didn't speak to anyone at that location?
Not at all.
Okay. Are you aware of whether any video surveillance was recovered from that laundromat?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
Whether it was or was not, I don't know.
Who would have been, if you know, who would have been responsible for retrieving any video surveillance from the laundromat if there was any?
Objection, Your Honor.
He's the investigator, Judge.
I stand the objection, no.
Do you know if a crime scene person or anyone else involved in the investigation sought or received video surveillance from the laundromat?
Your Honor, I'm going to object, ask and answer.
I'll allow that one.
I do not know.
Did you seek or obtain any video surveillance from the apartment complex?
There was none.
Okay. And whom did you check with in regards to that?
The manager. And also my observation of the buildings not having cameras.
Okay, so there are no surveillance cameras at any of the buildings at that location?
That was my interpretation from what she said in my observations, yes.
You testified earlier about radio traffic and communicating with, was it Investigator Quinn that you communicated with over the radio while you were at the crime scene?
I don't believe that's what I testified to, but I could have.
Okay.
It wouldn't be uncommon for me, he and I, to communicate over the radio.
Okay. Did you testify previously that there was someone that you were talking to on the radio where you had to switch channel to talk to someone?
I think my testimony was not specifically me communicating with someone. It was generally speaking of what happens in a chaotic scene like that, where the dispatcher requests all the units on the scene to switch to what's called a TAC channel.
Okay. Were you monitoring the radio traffic during the investigation? And obviously you arrived after the fact. So were you monitoring the radio traffic afterwards?
I think so. For clarity,
When you were at the scene?
so there's several channels that are involved here. You have Zone 3, Detective Radio, and TAC. So
Yeah.
specifically, which
Any?
I was probably still on Detective Radio. I just don't specifically recall.
Okay.
And then when the dispatcher advises people to go to TAC, I likely switched over to the TAC channel as well.
Okay. Were you involved in looking for any suspects on that day?
No,
Okay. Were you involved in assigning anyone to look for any suspects on that day?
I was not.
Were you involved in taking any descriptions of possible suspects on that day?
I did take 2 statements from 2 of the officers involved. I don't recall in my
I
questioning.
would object to any testimony that is hearsay from anyone not listed.
I've not asked for any hearsay testimony, Your Honor. The question was whether or not or a specific question did not call for hearsay. Actually, I'll ask the question again.
Oh, wait a second.
Yes. Were you?
Yeah, you can answer that.
Can you answer the question
Were
again?
you involved in taking any descriptions of potential suspects on that day?
Again, I could have. I took 2 statements from 2 officers. I don't recall whether I specifically asked them to give me those descriptions. I may have. I'd have to read their statements.
Okay. Did you have any interaction with the individuals who were arrested by Officer Black, Officer Davis?
No,
Okay. Were those individuals gone by the time you arrived at that location?
I don't recall seeing any suspects, so I would assume yes.
Okay. Was there a point where Detective Lewis, you know who Detective Lewis is?
I'm not familiar with Detective Lewis.
Was there a Detective Lewis involved in this investigation on this day that you recall?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Do you recall receiving any photographs of someone named Adrian Bean?
I'm sorry, I do recall. My memory is reflected. Tracy Lewis. Detective Lewis did send me a photograph of Adrian Bean.
Okay. What did you do with that photograph of Adrian Bean?
I believe I sent it to Detective Quinn either via email or text.
Okay. You did not have any interaction personally with Adrian Bean, is that correct?
No.
Did you understand him to be someone who was in the vehicle that was at issue in this case?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. That will call for hearsay.
I sustain the objection.
All right. Let's go back a little bit and talk about the evidence that was shown to you by the state last week. You were aware that this red burgundy-ish vehicle was part of this incident, correct? The one that went into the laundromat, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, tell me if you were aware of whether there were any fingerprints retrieved from that vehicle.
I don't know.
Do you know whether or not there were any hair or fibers retrieved from that vehicle?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of the investigation.
The bullet defects that you were shown last week, remember you were shown a photograph of, when I said bullet defect, a hole in the window in building 300, I think?
Yes, sir.
Where a bullet is going through. Was the bullet defect or the bullet itself actually retrieved from the wall inside of that apartment?
It was not.
Were you or anyone else able to determine which gun or what gun fired the bullet that went through that window?
No.
We know, though, and you know as part of your investigation, that detective and investigator officer Robeson L. actually discharged his weapon a number of times. Is that correct?
Correct.
In fact, there were shell casings that were found there at the location that came from his gun. Is that right? Or do you know that?
I don't know conclusively. I've not read the crime lab report. It's assumed they were the same caliber, same make and manufacturer as the ammunition that we carry.
Okay. The vehicle that was shown last week, the one that had the broken out rear window, right? Was there a bullet fragment or bullet or anything found inside of the vehicle that actually made that broke the window? Was a bullet retrieved?
I wasn't involved in that part of the investigation. I don't know.
Would it be fair to say that you don't know, we don't know what bullet actually broke that window?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that call for speculation.
Do you know?
Still cause for speculation. I'm saying objection.
Was that vehicle with the broken window located in the same area where Officer Robeson L. discharged his firearm?
Your Honor, I'm going to object if that would call for hearsay.
If he knows, Your Honor.
No, I'll rule an objection if he knows.
If you're referring to the red vehicle involved in the incident,
No,
I'm sorry.
no, the one that had the broken out rear window. I guess it was a silver vehicle. I'll tell you what type of vehicle.
Suburban.
Suburban. Was it a Suburban or a Tahoe?
Or the SUV.
Right. You know what I'm talking about.
I understand which vehicle you're
Right.
speaking. Can you ask the question again, please?
Yeah. Was that vehicle located in the same area where Officer Robeson discharged his firearm?
It was located in the same apartment complex, and I think area is a vague term. I'm not sure what you mean by area.
Well, do you know?
Proximity of where shell casings were was not far from there.
So, do you know where it was Officer Robeson was when he discharged his firearm?
And Your Honor, that would call for hearsay, so I object. He was
I'll sustain the objection.
Do you know where the shell casing from Officer Robeson L's gun was located in the complex?
I object, Your Honor. That would call for speculation.
That's based on his observation, Your Honor.
Testimony.
He hasn't. I'm saying objection.
Did you see the a 40 caliber shell casing?
I located 3.
Okay. Where were they located?
Can I refer to my report?
Absolutely.
So my report, as I listed the evidence marker 3, 4, and 5 are the shell cases, the 40 caliber shell casings.
Okay.
And when you are measuring evidence, you pick 2 points of reference, point A and point B, to triangulate the evidence. Point A, this for the purpose of measurements, was the southwest corner of building 100. Point B is the southeast corner of building 100. So from, I mean, do you want me to actually give the measurements, sir?
No, I don't need the measurements.
Oh, that's the only thing I can testify to.
Okay. You know generally where they were located in the apartment complex. Is that fair to say?
I do, according to my measurements, yes.
Okay. And so knowing where those shell casings were located, and do you know where the vehicle, the SUV, was located that had the rear window shot out?
Yes,
Okay. Were those shell casings in close proximity to that vehicle?
I don't know, objections to vague, close.
I stand objection.
Give us, if you would, don't say close or far or around. Just give us the measurement, the distance from the shell casings to the vehicle.
there is no measurement. So we don't measure, the measurement is for the evidence location, but based on my diagram, I can testify the vehicle was by the front gate leasing office. And shell case, well, the casings, evidence marker 3.5 and 40 caliber shell casings were just across the entrance gate. And just thinking back and looking at the photographs, I would estimate probably 50 feet,
50 feet.
give or take.
Thank you. Did you have, you did not have any interaction with someone by the name of Walter Murphy on that day, did you?
No, sir.
Were you involved in the decision to issue any charges or take out any warrants against anyone by the name of Walter Murphy?
I was not.
Were you at any time after this day, September 11th of 2013, called upon to testify in any form or fashion in any case involving a Walter Murphy?
I was not.
So, if I hear your testimony correctly, you went to the location on that day, true?
I did.
You you drew the legend that kind of made reference to where the different items of evidence were, correct?
I did.
You drove to the laundromat, true?
Yes.
You did not interview anyone arrested in this case, correct?
Correct.
You were not the lead investigator.
I was not.
You spoke to 2 officers, correct?
I took statements from 2 officers.
Okay. Was Officer Porter, Bridget Porter, one of those people?
Yes.
Okay. Without telling us what she said, were you able to get a written statement or a statement, I don't know if it was written or not, from Officer Porter?
Yes.
Was it your understanding from investigating this case and talking to her that she was a witness to a portion of this incident?
That calls for hearsay.
Your Honor, it goes to his investigation. If he,
It's still hearsay.
did you talk to Officer Porter because you believe
Objection,
that she
Your Honor.
was a witness to this case and was necessary in your investigation?
I'm gonna sustain the question, Mr. Crone. It's compounding.
Okay. Did you believe, based on your investigation, that Officer Porter was a witness in this case?
Objection, Your Honor.
Oh, objection, he can answer it.
Yes.
All right. And was that the reason that you spoke to her?
Yes.
And was that the reason that you took a statement from her?
Yes.
And as we discussed before, when you take statements, those statements may later on be passed on to the prosecuting authority, like the DA's office, right?
Correct.
So that they would have the information that you garnered from that witness, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any reason to believe that wasn't done in this case?
What wasn't done?
That the information in regards to Officer Porter wasn't passed on?
I don't have any reason to believe it wasn't, no.
Okay. Did you leave, I mean, have I properly summarized essentially what you did in regards to this case, or was there something else that you did?
Object as to testimony regarding properly summarized. He's
I
testifying.
sustain the objection.
All right. The question I asked you before about the things that you did, going to the location, going to the laundromat, are those the things that you did on that day?
Yes.
All right. Did you at some point leave the scene?
Yes.
Did you have any further involvement in the case after that?
Taking 2 statements back at homicide, yes.
Okay. And after that, anything else?
No.
Okay. One moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Detective, you weren't the first officer on the scene, right?
Which scene?
On the, well, investigating whether we're talking about the apartment complex or the laundromat. You weren't the first officer there.
No, sir.
By the time you got there, other officers were already there?
Yes.
Uniformed officers?
Yes.
Any other detectives there? And I'm using, APD does it a little differently. I'm using the term investigator and detective interchangeably. Any other investigators or detectives there?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you say that you met investigator Quinn out at the location?
I believe Quinn came out. Honestly, I remember talking to Quinn, whether it was at the primary shooting location or when I drove to the secondary location. I don't recall which one.
Okay, but your recollection is that he was there at either one of those 2 locations?
One of the 2 that I personally spoke to him.
Okay. Do you remember approximately how many officers were out there?
At the shooting location?
Yes.
Maybe 4 or 5 when I arrived.
And what about over at the laundromat?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I was literally there for maybe a minute, 2 minutes.
Okay.
My recollection is when I got there, I was asked to go to the office to meet with the 2 officers to take statements.
Okay. They had already been removed from the scene.
I don't recall seeing them, so I don't know.
Okay.
They could have been there, I just don't remember seeing them.
Okay. So about 4 or 5 officers over at the shooting scene in the apartment complex, and you're not quite sure about how many over at the laundromat?
I have no idea. I didn't get out of my car.
Okay. Did Detective Quinn stay there at the location after you left?
I don't know.
Okay. You would not have been in a position to assign him to do anything because he was the lead detective, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. That's all.
Any further examination? Yeah, Mr. App, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning,
Morning.
Detective Velasquez. How are you?
Great, thank you.
We've met before, right?
Several times.
Yes. Your investigation in this case did not involve in any way Mr. Diamante Kendrick, did it?
Don't know the name.
Don't know the name?
No, sir.
Do you know this man sitting in the white sweater next to me?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Anybody else? Mr. Matthews, Senior, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Investigator Velasquez.
Good afternoon.
A few questions for you. Zone 3 is an area that you patrolled and investigated numerous crimes in that area, correct?
I did.
Can you tell the jury if Jonesboro South Apartments is located or was located in Zone 3?
It was.
Can you tell the jury, a little bit about what you recall in terms of your investigations of Did you conduct any investigations in Jonesboro South Apartments?
I've had both through Red Dog and Homicide, several.
Tell the jury what was Jonesboro South Apartments?
Jonesboro South was a housing complex on Jonesboro Road. It was a gated community, townhouse type apartments. They had a good number over the years, a good number of homicides and a good amount of crime that occurred inside the complex.
Would you, to the best of your knowledge and belief, how many murders did you investigate in Jonesboro South Apartments?
My recollection, personally, 2 that I can recall in my 17 years.
How about drug crimes?
In the 90s, I think maybe 3 or 4 arrests I personally made in Jonesboro South.
Was Jonesboro South a subsidized housing community?
It was part of the Atlanta Housing Authority.
And when you investigated drugs and murders in Jonesboro South Apartments, did you have an occasion to talk to members out there in the community?
I did.
Did those members in the community talk back to you and give you helpful information?
Yes, often.
Were there ones that did not?
There were some residents who were not helpful.
Would you agree that Jonesboro South Apartments was a lower income community?
Yes.
Would you agree that many of the residents out in Jonesboro South were at the poverty level?
I think based on it being a housing property, subsidized housing, yes.
Okay. Now, you were investigated for 17 years, I think you indicated?
Yes, sir.
During those 17 years of investigating crimes, did you have an occasion to interview witnesses?
I did.
Did you have an occasion to get statements from those witnesses?
Yes.
Did you, during the course of your investigations, did you start an interview with a person and record it and then erase the recording?
I've done that.
How many times have you done that?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Goes to credibility, Your Honor.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I don't know. As I testified before, in context, many times I would have a tape recorder just running in my lapel, in my pocket, and knocking on doors. And again, as I'm interviewing someone or witnesses especially, they would lie. I would have facts or have a feeling, even not even knowing. And then through the conversation, start over and say, okay, an official statement, and then speak on the official statement that what you told me before was untrue, and then record that statement and submit it.
So you're using the term official statement. When does a statement become official to you?
I think once we get down to them understanding that they have lied, if it's a lie, and we start getting to the facts of the statement, it's official. Much of the conversation many times is very superficial, leading up to the information that we want to ask them.
Isn't it true, Investigator Velasquez, that a statement really doesn't become official to you until the things that are being said match with what you want it to be?
Objection. Argumentative.
I sustain the objection.
When the information that a witness is disclosing to you does not line up with whatever your other course of your investigation or the information that you have, it's not official at that point, correct?
It could be if that's their statement. If taking statements where clearly the person is lying and they're sticking to that story, and then that's what I'm left with.
Okay. When you say clearly that person is lying, let's just be clear here. When an event happens, Investigator Velasquez, generally speaking, You don't see it happen, correct?
Correct.
Generally speaking, you're not there when it happens, right?
I would agree, yeah.
And the information that you're getting from these people out of these scenes and these investigations, it's information that they, a lot of times, either saw, correct?
Yes.
Heard, correct?
Yes.
And they're giving you what they believe or what they're telling you happened, right?
Right.
Now, so you don't know from one statement to another, in fact, that a person is, quote, lying, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Many times when you take statements, there's several people who may have observed the same thing.
Okay.
And especially if 2 people or 3 people are involved, if it's several witnesses that are part of a group,
Okay.
and one gives a statement that is in contradiction to the other, then there's a determination on who is telling. Someone's lying.
Okay.
So,
Can you direct the jury to anywhere you're familiar with the Atlanta Police Department standard operating procedures?
yes,
And that is the guideline in the book that police officers, investigators, and law enforcement in general are governed by in terms of how to conduct their affairs as police officers, right?
yes.
All right. Is there anywhere in the Atlanta Police Department standard operating procedures, because I've looked,
Objection, Your Honor, to the
I
testifying.
stand.
is there anywhere in those procedures where it says that it is okay or appropriate to record then erase statements?
I don't know. I would have to look through the standard operating procedures. There's probably volumes of documents that I would have to review. I just don't know the answer to that.
And but for 17 years you operated under those particular guidelines, right?
Yes.
And would it surprise you that there's nowhere in the standard operating?
I'm going to object to,
Basis.
I haven't finished my question.
he is assuming that's not in evidence when he asks, would it surprise the witness?
I stand that as the form, sir.
Do you know that there is no area in the SOPs that discuss?
I'm going to object yet again for the same reason.
Same question.
Do you know if there is any area in the standard operating procedures that discuss statements, to how statements are to be obtained by police officers and investigators?
I know that there is an area that covers when to take a statement, to gather information of an incident. Generally speaking, my experience with reading SOPs they're very general of what you should do in a certain circumstance. If there's a witness, take a statement and then decide whether it's videotape statement, audio statement, written statement. But most SOPs are very general in nature and don't really dial into very much specifics.
And as you're thinking and recalling back to the area that you just testified to in terms of statements, you know that in that area that you just thought of, there's no.
I'm going to object to assuming that's not in evidence when.
I stand the objection.
No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Short.
Detective Velasquez,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon. You just indicated that in your experience, in your time as a detective, you have erased statements before, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to object to the questions concerning as relevance.
I'm gonna overrule the objection.
Now, as part of your duties as an investigator, you also write reports, correct?
Correct.
And the purpose of the reports are to accurately memorialize what's been done in a case, correct?
Correct.
Okay. In these situations where you've written reports and also have erased a witness's statement, do you note in your report that you erased the statement?
No, what I would note in my report is that he lied and then admitted to lying the first time we spoke or in his first statement. And I think it's assumed that it's not available for review because now we then sit down and start talking about the facts of the case.
Okay, so when in your reports, you would make some indication that a previous statement was made.
Correct. And if it was obviously a lie, I would indicate in my report that that person was untruthful in our initial encounter. And then subsequently another statement was made and it was memorialized and included in the file.
Understood. You know what discovery is, correct?
I do.
Okay, and you're aware that the police reports that you write are eventually passed along to defense attorneys, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that statements that are recorded are eventually passed out over to defense attorneys as part of discovery, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You would agree that it's important to know what witnesses say?
Yes.
Okay. In the event of you personally erasing statements, the defense attorneys would have an opportunity to view your report, correct?
Yes.
And see that there was initially a lie.
I'm sorry.
There was initially a lie told, correct?
Correct.
Based on your belief that it was a lie.
Or my belief that the person I'm speaking to admitted that they lied.
Okay, fair enough. You would agree, though, through discovery that erased statement is no longer available to the defense attorneys, correct?
Well, it is because it's memorialized in the report.
Do you give quotes in your reports about what was said in the erased statement?
I could, depending on, the situation. If it was specific to, like, as an example, the color of a car or a time of day that may be relevant. If that was the lie, I would quote that.
And why would you quote that?
Because it would be relevant.
It would be relevant.
That would be the lie.
Right, and it would be relevant and important for defense attorneys to know what was said, even in the lie?
I don't know. I mean, I think my obligation would be to memorialize it and turn it over to the DA's office and then the legal ease that happens between both sides. I think that's beyond my interpretation.
But you do view it as your obligation to at least memorialize it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, nothing further.
Any further questions? Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May retired Detective Velasquez be permanently or temporarily excused as a witness at this time?
You may be correct.
Thank you.
All right, sir, I'm going to permanently excuse you as a witness. I thank you for your time and patience with us, and
Thank you.
please don't discuss your testimony with anybody except the attorneys in this case, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's about almost 12:30. How about we take about an hour for lunch, and then we come back and see where the afternoon leads us, all right? So, ladies and gentlemen, we will come back and get you around 12:30 or thereabouts, and we'll see you then, okay? All right, all rise. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Our jury has left us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you can take your hour and just be back around 1:30. That'd be great. Okay? All right, we're in recess until 1:30.
Thank you, Your Honor.